talking about the wicked son. Let's first read the Hebrew here, and then after we read the Hebrew, we'll get into the commentaries. So it says, Rasha Mahu Omer. The wicked son, what does he say? Oh, hello there. We have a very distinguished a participant, Michael and Barbara. Honored to have you here. Would you like some soup? You want some hot soup? No? Okay, so the wicked son, what does he say? He says the following. Oh, Judah, you joined just when we were talking about the wicked son now. He says, what is this service for you? Lachem. He said, for you, for you, but not for him. Because he took himself out of the community. Kafar bi'ikar. He rejected the main aspect of it. You have to blunt his teeth, and you have to say to him, Memorlo. This is what God did for me when I left Egypt. Leave for me, but not for him. If he would have been there, he would have not been redeemed. And before we get into the explanation, we want to point out a couple of things. It says because he took himself out of the community, he rejected the main point. It's as though saying that the main point is not to remove yourself from the community. First of all, what's so terrible about his question? He says, what is the service for you? Well, for you is the exact same thing as the wise son asked. He said, what are these laws that God commanded you? So we have to figure out what's the difference between the wise son and the wicked son. Also, normally kafar bi'ikar is usually understood to be a heresy. Here he hasn't said anything heretical. And then you blunt his teeth, or literally you smack his teeth. Is it Haggadah advocating violence against the child who asks a difficult question? And then it says, he said to him, because of this, God did this for me when I left Egypt. Why don't you say when we left Egypt? And then you say, it says for me, but not for him. If he would have been there, he would have not been redeemed. Why doesn't it say if he would have been there, you would have not been redeemed? It says you say to him, but then it's talking about him, and you're not speaking to him. Everybody follow this reading? So
I have one more question.
Yeah, sure.
The Torah would have never written the word lo in any context. It doesn't work grammatically. Like that's they're basically saying we're going to change the grammar because of his question. That doesn't make any sense.
Right. One of the answers I love the most is that you're not responding to the wicked son because the wicked son is not somebody you can necessarily talk to. He's clearly not trying to be part of the solution. He's removed himself from the community. So who do you have to speak to? You speak to the other kids. You speak to the simple son or the one who doesn't know how to ask. Those are the ones you have to explain it to. But this wicked son, he's just not part of the, he's just not part of it. But even though I said that, Deborah said, I want to change the name of the wicked son. I don't like the name wicked. So Deborah, you're in good company. Rebbe Melech of Lezhensk, the Rebbe of this yeshiva, Rebbe Melech, he emphasizes that the wicked son shares the same letters as Sha'ar. Rasha is the same letters as Sha'ar, gate.
Gate, yeah.
Meaning a Jew can find a gateway to God at all times, even when he is in the depths of his wickedness. So even though he's in his wickedness, he can have a gateway to Hashem. Do not do not give up on anybody. Even if he's Russia, it's also the same letters as Sha'ar, gate. Beautiful. That's Rebbe Melech.
So
Yes.
I think that also that the quote unquote wicked son gives voice to our Yetzer Hara. I mean, it's not like the rest of us who are not, maybe not wicked, don't have that in us.
Okay. So we all have some wickedness inside us. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
So maybe his voice is what the gate is, the connection, because we talked today in Mishnah that the fifth hidden son is the one that is not visible at all, does not show up. You cannot find this person. He's not,
Right.
There's no voice to that person. No audible voice present. That person's just not there.
Yeah, that's something that's true. I think we discussed a little bit of that yesterday. The fifth son is not even at the table. So this is what the Rebbe said, Judah. This is what the Lubavitcher Rebbe taught. The Lubavitcher Rebbe says the wicked son is mentioned right after the wise son to tell us that the wicked son can also become wise if he corrects his behavior. That's one thing. Number two, the wise son has a responsibility to try to motivate the wicked son.
Oh, can I give you a very good example of that? Our first year in Korea, we went to the Seder of Chabad, and there were 100 people there. There was a table of people that were starting to cause a big fuss. Lots of noise, lots of not listening, lots of interrupting. And the rabbi walked over to him, and I thought, oh no, he's going to yell at him. It's going to be bad. What he did was he started singing a nigun.
Beautiful.
And the whole table quieted down, and everybody joined in.
Beautiful.
It was amazing.
Yeah, Steve.
Says the thieves in Egypt, he would not have been redeemed.
Right.
So why is that?
So basically, this is a reference to the fact, right, that not everybody was able to be redeemed. That Rashi tells us that 4/5, Rashi tells us that 4/5 of the people didn't make it out of Egypt. 4/5 didn't make it out. They were left behind. 4/5 were wicked. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting number too.
Yeah. 4/5. Right. 4/5 did not make it out. What?
How did it come to 4/5?
She came to the 4/5 because the Midrash is based upon the fact that the biblical verse says Vachamushim, and which means armed, or it can mean a fifth. That Vachamushim, that they left 1/5 left.
But does that mean they're all wicked? Or does that just mean that 1/5 left?
It means that the 4/5 died. They died during the plague of darkness. And that's what the text was telling us, that they didn't, that's why they died during the plague of darkness, that we didn't want the Egyptians to see them dying.
Okay, that's logical, but that doesn't.
He wouldn't have been redeemed. Yeah, he wouldn't have made it out. They were,
Short-sighted, maybe.
They were dead.
yeah. Yeah, Judah, were you trying to say something? No, they were wicked. That's why they weren't redeemed. That's what the point was, Steve.
I get it, but I don't know. I don't get it.
They didn't want to be part of it. They didn't buy into Moses' message. Even Moses, the greatest speaker, the greatest leader in the history of the world, he only got to 20% of the people.
I understand. Does that mean the logic here is that those that didn't agree with Moses were wicked? So I don't get that.
Well, they didn't.
So they just
Well,
didn't
Moses
agree.
was the voice of God. So if you don't believe in Moses, you're really rejecting God.
Wasn't like they were rejecting anybody.
Well, I don't know. Moses, that's another assumption.
Yeah, we're assuming that, but you're okay. I guess you could say they just didn't buy. Maybe they just didn't choose right. They didn't choose right. You could say that. Okay, so then what happened next? It says, so the wicked son, so what was the Rebbe saying? The wicked son can become wise if he A, corrects his behavior, B, the wise son has to try to motivate him, and C, the wise son has to not be obsessed with his own pride. He has to realize there's only a slight difference between him and the wicked son. That's what the Lubavitcher Rebbe says. You like that?
I like that. Yeah. That's rational.
There you go. That's from the Rebbe. That's the seventh Rebbe, or sometimes called the current Rebbe, even though he died in 1994, but he's still more alive than anybody. Okay, now, what does he say? What is a service to you? So it says, this idea, this question in the Torah is preceded by the fact that it says your son will ask you. Now, the word va'ya generally in the Torah is an expression of happiness. So the Maggid of Kushnit says, what's the happiness if he's asking you this question of the wicked son? So where's the happiness? So the happiness is that he's showing interest. Even if the son is asking a bad question, he's showing interest. He's engaged. The worst thing for a parent is this: there's a child who's completely disengaged. That's worse than the child who's sitting there and is engaged, but is engaged in negative.
Exactly. That's in any situation. A child that's acting up is trying to communicate something. Trying to communicate a need of some kind. That's why the wicked, the quote unquote wicked son appeals to me, because it's a challenge. It's a challenge. Yeah. It's a challenge to bring out the positive part of me to connect with that energy. It's not easy. And so I personally am not always successful with it, but I do like the challenge.
Okay, so let's see what else they say. So it says because he excluded himself from the community. The word atzmo. So here Rabbi Yerachmiel Yisrael of Alexander says the word atzmo can also be the essence. So it could also mean he took out his essence from himself. Meaning to say, the wicked son separates himself from his essence. And in doing so, that was his sin. He took away his essence. Were you trying to say something, Aviva?
I don't know what that means.
What does it mean that he took away? He's denying his true self. That's what it means. He's not being true to himself. That's the real wickedness.
So he's really wicked. He said he's wicked.
Yeah.
There's no true self.
No, that's the wickedness. The wickedness is that he's not allowing his true self to come out.
I mean, that there's something down there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is Rasha, does it actually mean wicked?
Yes, it comes from wickedness. Yes, that's what it means. But if you turn it around, Rabbi Mel says it could be gate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wasn't sure it actually.
It actually means wicked, yeah. So
What's the Shoresh, Rabbi?
Reish Shanayin, I guess. So you should blunt his teeth. So Haket Shinav. So Rabbi Shua of Bell said, one of the difficulties of the wicked son is that he doesn't know how to listen. He's always arguing. So blunting his teeth prevents him from speaking. It allows him to be at the Seder. And then he becomes the one who doesn't know how to ask. And then there's hope that God will open him up and bring him back to his Jewish roots. So we turn, this is what some people said, that the four sons are all of us. The wise, but if you know what happens when you're too wise, you become wicked. And then when you're too wicked, you're your own worst enemy. So then we have to turn you into being simple, don't be so smart. And eventually the highest level is the one who doesn't know how to ask, who says, teach me. You ever hear that? I think I must have heard it, but it just came to me now, but I'm sure I heard it somewhere. That the four sons are really all of us. We start out, when we get too wise, we end up being wicked.
Yes, we have all four faces. That's to think that we're ever all just one way is
Right.
I mean,
Exactly.
it defies the Rebbe, it defies Freud, who were friends. I mean,
Yeah.
Nearson and Freud talked to each other. It defies everything we know about ourselves.
Yeah.
When I sit at the Seder and we separate these people, these different sons out from each other, I feel bereft.
Okay. And his teeth, what do we do with the word teeth? So here, hold on 1 second. So what do we do at the Seder? One of the teeth is the way of dealing with the wicked son is to force him to confront his own evil, blunt his teeth. The Hebrew word for tooth is shein, resembling the letter shin. The Zohar states that the shin is a holy letter. Its inclusion in the word Rasha emphasizes how every element of existence has a spark of godliness. However, since the wicked son refuses to recognize or identify with the godly nature, the shin is removed from him, leaving the letters Ra, the Hebrew root for evil. Yes, Jerry.
The rabbi last night pointed out that
What was his name? What was his name?
that the Haggadah text actually points out this idea that these four qualities, or the characteristics of these four sons, are really wrapped up in all of us. And he points out that the text in the Haggadah says Echad Cham, Echad Rasha, Echad simple, Echad guy that doesn't know how to ask.
Yeah.
Grammatically, it should say the first son has this characteristic. The second son has this another characteristic. The third,
Right.
but
Right.
it says echad, 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 meaning that we're talking about the one individual that has that based upon the situation in the person's life. Sometimes he's good, sometimes he's bad, depending upon
Very nice.
life's
Very
problem.
nice. Very nice, Jerry.
And also this takes us back to the lulav and the etrog. I mean,
Yeah.
all four species that at any given time we encompass all of those values. So
Yeah. So who was the rabbi, Jerry, who said that? I just want to make sure.
The rabbi's name is Rabbi Yoshua Katz.
Oh, Yisachar Katz, probably.
Yisachar Katz, yes.
Okay, fine. So then it says, Bavur Zeh, on account of this, God did this for me when I left Egypt, for me and not for him. If he would have been there, he would not have been redeemed. So this is actually going back to what Rabbi Yosef said. This is a question that's quoted from the Torah. So one of the commentaries point out that the response, even though this is a question, in the Torah it says, what is this service for you? But the answer we give to him is not the answer that's given from the Torah. So in the Torah, the answer is, it is the Pesach sacrifice. The Torah gives a totally different answer from the Haggadah, not as harsh. So why does the Torah give a non-harsh answer? And here the Haggadah is a very harsh answer. So the way we answer this is, there are two types of people who act wickedly. One out of spite. This is the person who was educated in the Torah, and yet he refuses to observe. And so therefore the Haggadah's reply to him is sharp and biting. But others act that way out of ignorance. The people who act out of ignorance, they have no desire to violate Hashem's will. or deny their Jewish roots. They simply don't know any better. So rather than criticize them, the Torah invites them to participate in the Pesach. So there's two ways. Some people do it out of ignorance, some people do it out of spite. Now I'll go to the question that Steve was asking about before. What does it mean if he would have been there, he would not have been redeemed? It can mean, so this is what the Slonimer Rebbe says. He takes a positive approach. He says, if he would have been there, he wouldn't have been redeemed. But in the time of Mashiach, he will be redeemed. In the redemption from Egypt, they weren't redeemed. But that was once in history. But now, but actually, the Torah, that was before the Torah was given. But once the Torah was given, it made certain that in the future, everybody will be a part of the redemption. Beautiful. Yeah. Let's see what the Musar Haggadah has to say. Does anybody have anything to add from their Haggadah? Let me see what. This is what the so the hold on one second. Okay, what is the Musar Haggadah has a lot of long essays on this, which we have to study more carefully.
This is clearly the most difficult of the four.
The wicked son,
Yeah, I think it's very difficult.
that they seem to be
Well,
throwing him out. You know,
It brings up two different issues. I mean, one is the, as you just said, the redemption from slavery, right, which is what we're talking about. And the second is when the Mashiach arrives, that redemption. And they're quite different, actually, it seems to me.
yeah, that was the answer of the Slonimer, but really on a basic level, the question is the question that every educator has to really ask before we, go into this question with greater depth and Hasidic kuntzes. On a basic level, the question really is, what do you do when there's a member of the group, a teacher, a child, who is destroying the group with their negativity, with their cynicism, with their negative energy, and they are destroying it? And you know what? Sometimes for the good of the group, you need to say, we need to move on. One of the most important lessons in life is knowing when to move on. It's not simple, but on a basic level, you're sitting there at the table, and if one person is putting off so much negative energy, just get rid of them.
I agree with that, but
Yeah.
does this really say that? It doesn't.
How do you do that if it's a family member?
Why? All the more reason.
Oh, that's easy.
All the more reason. I mean, the point is that this why the Haggadah takes this image of a child, because of a child, and says one of the worst things you could do for a child is to enable them to continue down their path. And then you're not helping them and you're not helping anybody else. But obviously it's very hard thing to do. But the Haggadah is telling us, the Haggadah is not woke. The Haggadah is not woke at all. It's just not. I'm just saying it's not woke. It's not giving us the woke answer or the politically correct answer. It's just saying, you know what? You put your whole heart and soul into getting there and telling this story. You made the Pesach. You got everybody together. You got dressed up. You worked for a month to make the perfect Seder. And then you have this jerk who's sitting there and making fun of it and just being cynical. And you say, you know what? Sayonara. I don't know. That's what, on a simple level. Now you could give a lot of Hasidic explanations. You could take it deeper. You could try to look for the best. But I'm saying, as we say, what does it really mean? Like, if you were just going to just read this text without trying to not give up on anybody, you're just trying to read this text. That's what it's really saying on a simple level.
Kids aren't born bad. So it either came from you as the parent or from the outside influence that you allowed him to hang out.
Okay, you know what? Maybe it's your fault. You bear some responsibility, but at the end of the day, this is the situation. You can't, some people are grown, sometimes you see grown people, they're still acting like jerks. You know what? You can't say it's, oh, you could have been a better parent. Fine, fine. But you can't beat yourself up about it if it's not going to change the situation. You know, if you have 4 kids and 3 of them are doing the right thing at the table and one of them is being a jerk, you have to say sometimes, I'm just like, okay, it's not for you.
Yeah, but it's kids, but when I've had adults ruin a
No,
thing.
yeah, for sure. No, I would have much more patience for a kid than for an adult. But anyway, let's stop the recording here. All righty. All right. Shkoyach, everybody. Shia.